by Algeria. Girls of the Moroccan follies decorate their elaborate costumes with coins and ornaments of real gold. Close.
That when you work with snails, you work at a snail's pace.
قال لك سيدي على وزيت فيه عندك صديقك
دوي تدوي ما دوي دوي هارل زيد زيد يلا شوف يلا يا واجد قديم يلا يلعبوها حالة سيري صفر هذا الخرج الاول دور بها الراس ودور بها ولا برغوث ولا لا برغوث كل انا نكرم دور بها انا منهم شيء يصير هذا التوتر بدنا نبغى نشوف انا على الشيطان انا على الشيطان انا على الشيطان انا اكل معي لا لا خذي فرنك خذي يلا انا نعطي فرنك يا الناس الدراري ولا الرجال واحد خليها لي هنايا
وعندنا قلنا لازم اجيكم مرة كيف لا شيء ما في غاكا علينا انت طلعت نهزي
هاي درست هاي
خليه يصوم لي حيدر بركة هانا ولي هانا
Untouched by the changing customs of the outer world throughout the centuries, its walled cities are still entered through great gates. Marrakesh, or Morocco City. The great square is filled with crowds of brightly clad Moors, buying and selling, or pausing to watch the antics of wandering street entertainers. In one part of the square, we find the Moroccan grain pit. No dealing in futures here, but only in real bags of wheat and barley. Probably scenes like these took place in ancient Egypt when Joseph bought up grain for the 7 lean years. Quarreling, bickering, and much excitement go along with Moorish trading, just as they do in stock exchanges the world over. Water boys with beards wander about among the throng, and when the busy broker gets that dry feeling, he purchases a cupful of water out of a shaggy goatskin for 1/5 of a cent. The market is up today, and he's in a spending mood. Because 9 out of 10 Moors cannot read or write, the position of public letter writer is an important one. Only men are secretaries here. Very seriously, he writes the Arabic script from right to left. Right out in the busy street, we find an open-air silk factory. An imbecile in rags has been taught to pound fruits and flowers to make the delicate dyes with which this machine-like pair color the raw silk. Along this typical street are the town's leading shoe stores, where every pair of shoes is made by hand while you wait. Price, 50 cents. This fine-looking cobbler is a Berber, oldest of all known Moroccan tribes. Because the burning rays of the African sun are so severe, many streets through the fascinating bazaars are partly covered with palm leaves, a sight found only in Morocco. And here is a Singer sewing machine, with the boy singing and the man sewing. Their hands work together in perfect rhythm to produce a braided hem on a cloak. Out through the eastern gate rides the native courier on his full-blooded Arabian charger. In the ancient olive groves, men knock down the ripe fruit from the trees, while women, who are always given the harder work, gather the olives in baskets for the local market. And now we have come to Fez, most enchanting of all the cities of Morocco, founded more than 1100 years ago by the Sultan Idris II. Just inside the city walls, cool waters from the hills flow in the public drinking fountains, which are beautifully decorated with Moorish tiles in many gay colors. Along the narrow street comes a Muslim woman, heavily veiled, in strict accordance with the Mohammedan law, followed by a native porter carrying a heavy load of hides on his head. Working with speed and oriental thoroughness, this Arab worker fashions by hand wallets of Moroccan leather, famous throughout the world for beauty and durability. Because the Mohammedan religion prohibits the use of a strong drink, large quantities of tea are consumed, which is transported in straw-covered bales on the backs of mules. Away from the city, the wild and rugged country makes a perfect hiding place for Riffian bandits. Arriving in Meknes, imperial city of Morocco, we find a violent windstorm brewing. This ancient city attained its greatest importance under the rule of Sultan Ismail Moulay, proud father of 700 sons, 35 of whom were born in 1 month. Sacred mosques rise all about the city. Every courtyard contains a fountain for the ceremonial washing of feet, hands, and face before prayer 6 times a day, as prescribed by law for all good Muslims. Children smoke at an early age here, but Papa takes prompt action when they smoke too near the mosque. Moroccan school kids are made to memorize long passages from the Koran as they sit barefooted in a circle. And if they don't know their lesson, teacher's yardstick is turned into a foot rule. Passing a blind beggar in rags does not interfere with the high spirits of the children. The girls are all smiles. They are not permitted to go to school. Led down the street by the strains of Oriental music, we find a troupe of dancing girls from nearby Algeria. Girls of the Moroccan follies decorate their elaborate costumes with coins and ornaments of real gold. Close by is the picturesque wool market, like a scene lifted from the Old Testament. Wool is used here not only for clothing, but for felt making and rugs. In making felt, the raw wool is beaten to take out the worst snarls, and is then rapidly combed and pulled into sections about a foot square by smiling olive-skinned Jewish women who wear the traditional shawl of their race. A mat of wool made up from the squares is next covered with soap suds, which are thoroughly rubbed in by a skilled native felt maker. Soon the slippery mess will become a brightly colored saddle blanket. Street scenes here never change, and the transportation of today is that of ages past. Rug making is a fine art in Morocco, and these dainty maids are experts. It takes 6 months to make a rug by tying bits of gaily colored wool to strings on a frame. Each rug has its own original design. No household is ever complete without at least 5 or 6 kids and assorted pets. After all our travels, we have finally discovered what becomes of second-hand circus tents. Today, the enormous storehouses of Sultan Ismail are empty. At one time, they were packed with grain to feed the 12,000 horses he kept in this stable. Yet, ancient Meknes has apparently changed but little from those glorious days of the dim past. Etched against the darkening heavens, her towers and minarets boldly stand, boasting the glories of a declining empire.
Marrakech, which lies in a great plain on the northern slopes of the snow-clad Atlas Mountains, was founded 900 years ago and was considered at one time to be the greatest city of Islam. It was then surrounded by massive flame-colored walls, sections of which still remain. The beautiful square tower of the Koutoubia Mosque still stands as a memorial to the constructive genius of the early Moors. The great open square called Jama el-Fna is the favorite gathering place of the natives. Morocco's general population is of a very mixed and turbulent kind. Through the centuries, Marrakech has become a veritable melting pot. Berbers, Arabs, Moors, Jews, and Negroes from the Sudan have married and intermarried so indiscriminately that origins are hard to trace and types are even harder to define. There are so many that can neither read nor write that the public scribes are all kept busy. But their superior knowledge does not include modern methods. First, the scribe takes a piece of bamboo, which he painstakingly whittles into the shape of a writing pen. Meanwhile, his customer patiently waits and gathers his thoughts. Who knows? Perhaps this may be a tender love message, or just a note telling Dad that he's broke again. The scribe is writing in Arabic. That is why his pen moves along the line from right to left. Marbles, a game that belongs to the kids of the entire world. Its origin is lost in the mists of antiquity. In the British Museum, they exhibit marbles that were used by Egyptian and Roman children more than 2,000 years ago, just as these youngsters of Marrakesh are knuckling down and shooting their toys in their alleys. Morocco leather is used universally, and right here in Marrakesh is where it is made out of goat skins, which are tanned a beautiful yellow or a brilliant red. This harness maker is busy turning out a belt, which he is sewing together with heavily waxed silk. And is this young man proud of his new belt? Turn around there, son. Let's take a look at the back. Yeah, that's right. To make their wonderful dyes, they pound pomegranates and other vegetable matter in mortars. The silk industry is an important one here, and this is how they do their dyeing. All these operations take place in the open street. Morocco is sometimes visited by that terrible and most ancient of plagues, one that the ingenuity of man has not yet been able to eradicate, the plague of the all-devouring locusts, the same plague that was visited upon a stony-hearted Pharaoh in the days of Moses. The locusts you see here are nymphs. They are young, their wings have not yet grown. Once they are able to fly, nothing can stop them. They breed in dry, arid soil and have to go hunting for their food. They travel in such enormous swarms that they even shut off the sunlight from the land over which they fly. When they alight, they strip the earth bare of all vegetable matter. They eat every blade of grass, every leaf on every tree or bush, leaving utter desolation in their wake. Even when young and wingless, they do not scatter. They follow a definite direction. This permits the natives to dig long ditches across their line of march. The ditches are filled with water and the locusts drown. Another way of getting rid of them is to drive them toward big heaps of dry straw, in which the young locusts try to hide. The straw is then set on fire. As far as we can discover, the Arabs are the only ones that have found a use for locusts. They boil them in salt water and then dry them in the sun. They taste like stale shrimps, but the Arabs enjoy eating them. And by the way, did you ever eat a stale shrimp? No, this is not a field of pussy willows. These are land snails clinging to the stalks from which they eat the leaves. So you see, they are vegetarians. Unlike the water snails, which are not good to eat, these Moroccan land snails are highly prized as a delicacy by gourmets who call them escargot. They are carefully gathered by hand and taken to a central station. Here they are sorted according to size and quality. But with typical Oriental nonchalance, the idea seems to be that when you work with snails, you work at a snail's pace. When sorting is done, the escargots are placed in small crates for exportation to France and Italy, but the larger shipments are made to the United States. Here comes a truckload of Moroccan snails, shipped by an Italian exporter for French consumption. As you enter a restaurant in Marrakech, you keep your turban on your head, but you leave your shoes at the door. Just a good old Moroccan custom. As they don't have chairs, they just squat tailor fashion on cushions. And now we're all set for the meal. That's goat's meat, served on an earthen platter with a straw bonnet. True to Oriental custom, the Moor breaks his bread. He never cuts it. First, he must be sure that the sauce is up to standard. And so he dunks. After all, it's the sauce that makes the dish. Here's a practical demonstration of the old saying, fingers were made before forks. And now a good drink of wine to keep the goat down. No finger bowls in Marrakech, probably because it takes more than a finger bowl to get the goat off one's hand. So an attendant ceremoniously brings in a large brass bowl and a cake of soap. The tea kettle supplies the water. Then they dry their hands with the same cloth that served as a community napkin during the meal. The proceeding is not very aesthetic, of course, but it seems practical. Now comes the all-important wind-up to the meal, the ceremony of tea making. First, a little boiling water, just enough to open the tea leaves. Then a bunch of mint is crammed into the teapot. Now 2 cones of sugar, and finally some hot water. There, that will do. Morocco has many other interesting sights and customs. Someday we will visit the humble tillers of the soil in the upper reaches of the Atlas Mountains. We'll meet more of its interesting people and investigate other industries. It's well worth a return visit. Until then, Allah be with you.